so this statement, you prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. In the book that Josh has been using as Shepherd's Look at Psalm 23, it says that from the viewpoint of the shepherd there that a table, when he says that you prepare a table before me, for the shepherd, a table was mountains. There were mountains that had flat tops, and the top was called a table. And any matter of fact, Dawn and I have seen that. We were in Durban, South Africa one time, and there's a famous mountain there called Table Mountain, and it's exactly what's being spoken of here. The shepherd would go up ahead of time and begin to prepare a clear path for the sheep, begin to, clear away briars and stuff in the path, look for food, make sure he points out stuff that's poisonous, things like that. That's what he's speaking of for sheep when he says he prepares a table before you. But obviously the implication for us is spiritual. And so he's not speaking to sheep, he's speaking to us. So what is he saying to us? Well, first of all, this. What is the table of the Lord? It's the first question asked for us spiritually. It's not, as some think, just comfort, peace, and security in the midst of the storm. And I want to say this, and this is an important statement, so follow with me. Listen to this. If you're taking notes, write this one down. There are really two tables. There are really two tables. There is a crisis table. In other words, a table the Lord prepares before us, before enemies in crisis, but there's also a daily table of the Lord. And I want to speak about both of those tables. So I want to do it by bringing out real quickly several points. Are you ready? Number one is this. Here we go. Number one. Let's talk about the table he prepares for us in times of difficulty. Okay, it seems that you ever notice it seems that in our darkest hour that Jesus comes nearest to us. Now think about this. I've seen it time and time again in people who've lost a loved one or suffered a great loss. But as you go and visit them, you see in their faces, the glory of God, the grace of God is just lighting them up. How many of y'all know what I'm talking about? And you say, my goodness, it's amazing, the glory, the grace that's upon them. It's like God picks them up in his hands and personally carries them through this season that they're going through. Well, that's a table that God has prepared before them in the presence of their suffering or their enemies. So anyway, number two is this. Watch this. Number two, he says that he prepares this table in the presence of our enemies. Now, it's important for us to understand that we do have enemies. Now, this is an obvious point. Actually, these first few points are very obvious, but they're huge. They're very important. Look in Psalm 55, verse 18 with me. You'll see it up here. Look at this. This is David says, he has redeemed my soul in peace from the battle that was raging, or the battle that was against me, for there were many against me. This is interesting because, David is saying here, God, in the midst of the battle, you're going to redeem my soul in peace. There is a war going on. Now, just listen to this. Many Christians have this idea that we get saved and then, everything's good, I'm good, God's good. We're going to kind of just sail on through with the grace of God, and that somehow that our enemies will all be put behind us. But it's actually the opposite. When you get saved, you actually get put on a list. You get put on the devil's list. Y'all listen to me. How many of you ever noticed that? And because there is a big G God in this world, the God of heaven and earth, we belong to him, and he is warring to keep us in his hand to eternally save us so that we may reign with his son Jesus Christ. But there's a little g God of this world who is waging war constantly against us. And it's extremely important as Christians to understand that part of your Christian life, a huge part of it, is that you have to be aware that every step you take forward in Christ, and as you move forward as a Christian, there's an enemy of your soul that's plotting and strategizing to try to undermine your faith, to try to pull you back to where you used to be. And so you cannot just say, I'm saved, and then just kind of like, all right, it's all good, and then you've got to fight. You've got to fight. All right, so the next one is this, number 4. Y'all listen to this. Okay, you're not ready. No, before I go to 4, let me just, it's number 3. I only gave you 2, right? All right, number 3, sorry. Number 3 is this, you ready? The battle is actually not for your stuff, it's for your faith. So the battle, this is a huge point. I mean, this is a biggie. The battle that's being waged against you has really very little about taking your stuff. It's very little about making you sick or about bankrupting you financially. It's very little about taking stuff from you. Those are only means that Satan uses to get to your faith. What Satan is after is your faith. Jesus says your faith is precious as gold. You got this gold that you have, and Satan's after your gold. And when you go through this stuff like this crisis, the COVID thing, the unrest in the streets, the political upheaval and all this unprecedented mess that we're going through. Yeah, people are afraid and people are, disturbed. I mean, freaking out. I understand that in the world, but in the church, Christians, come on, give me a break. Christians freaking out because of chaos, COVID, unrest, political upheaval? No. I mean, that should be anathema to us. I mean, do you realize who you are? And what I'm saying is, in this point, is that you got to understand this whole COVID mess. The devil's objective is not to get you sick with COVID. That's not really, he's really not interested that much in that. What he's really interested is to use that virus to get to your faith and shake the foundations of your peace and get you to get freaked out. That's his goal. He's after your faith, not your stuff. Hallelujah, I like that. Good preaching, Brother Rick. Thank you. I'll go on. All right. I love it. Look at this thing. I haven't put it up here on the screen. Look at this. The Treasury of David is a great book. The Treasury of David is a book, and it says in there about Psalm 23, look at this. Thou preparest a table before me when a soldier's in the presence of his enemies. If he eats at all, he snatches a hasty meal, and away he hastens to the fight. But observe, thou preparest a table, just as a servant does when she unfolds the damask cloth and displays the ornaments of the feast on an ordinary peaceful occasion. Nothing is hurried, there is no confusion, no disturbance. The enemy is at the door, and yet God prepares a table, and the Christian sits down and eats as if everything were in perfect peace. Oh, the peace which Jehovah gives to his people, even in the midst of the most trying circumstances. Yes. Isn't that good? Yes. Hallelujah. Number 4 is this. Look at this. Number 4, God prepares a table of comfort, peace, security in the time of trouble for those who eat at the daily table of the Lord. Now watch this. Here's what I want to talk about the 2 tables. I talk about a table. Yes, God will provide for you, prepare for you a table in the time of crisis, meaning God gives you what you need to go through. It's all there. The table's prepared. Whenever you're going through tough times, hard times, it seems the grace, the blessing, the inheritance even will rise and become more. But let me tell you something. I want to be honest with you. I don't want to give you false hope. Listen to what I'm saying now. I don't want to give you false hope. I could stand here and I could preach some rah-rah message to you about, yeah, Jesus will bring you through. Come on, he'll give you peace. Just cheer up. Come on, you're going to make it through and come out on the other side and all that stuff. And I could possibly end up giving you false hope. If I tell you that God will give you a crisis table without you sitting at the daily table, let me just say it again. Here I go. I'm going to back up. If I tell you that God will give you a crisis table without sitting at the daily table, I would be lying, and you will always be struggling trying to get peace in the time of trouble. So you'll kind of mentally believe essentially, oh yeah, there's this table, God, oh, come on. But you're always trying to conjure it up. You're always trying to work it up. I got to get, oh no, come on. He prepares a table. Come on, you with me now? That crisis table is there when you have daily sat at the Lord's table and feasted on Him. Oh, I like that point. People who don't eat at the daily table in time of crisis, they cry out to God and wonder why they struggle to find that table prepared for them. For the table of crisis is not a magic pill. Look with me in this. I want you to see this. I want to go the rest of our time to Psalm 27. And I'm actually going to use this Psalm 27 as a different language that David gives us to describe to me the same thing. He's talking about, in these two things, look at this. In Psalm 27, actually, starting in verse 4, watch this. You'll see over the next few verses that David, is the way language I'm given to it anyway, starting in verse 4, David is giving us two tables. The first few verses are the daily table. The last one is the crisis table. You'll see it. Let's look at this. Psalm 27:4. Are y'all ready? He says, one thing I have desired of the Lord, and that will I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life. Everybody say daily table. David says, I have one desire, that I'll seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord every day of my life. I want to sit at the feet of Jesus and listen to His word, and I want to do those two things together every day of my life as long as I live. He's saying, I want to sit at the daily table of the Lord. What do I want to do there? He says, to behold the beauty of the Lord. In other words, he said, I just want to look at Him. I just want to look at Jesus. Think of that. Oh, anyway, I can't get off on that. I just want to look at Jesus. Sometimes our prayers is mixed up with too many things. You know, Jesus, Jesus, that, Jesus. You know what? Really, even after he says, and to inquire in His temple. Yeah, you inquire about different things, but long before you do that, first, you just need to spend time looking at Jesus. You say, well, how do you look at Him? Well, that's another message for another time. I don't have time right now. But anyway, you just look at Him. Let me just say, you look at Him in His Word. You find Jesus in His Word. So He sits at the daily table, and then it says this, verse 5. This is the crisis table. He says, if I do that, for in the time of trouble, He shall hide me in His pavilion. In the secret place of His tabernacle, He shall hide me. He shall set me high upon a rock, and now my head shall be lifted up above my enemies all around me. Therefore I will offer sacrifices of joy in His tabernacle. I will sing, yes, I will sing praises to the Lord. I love this. Look at this. So you see the daily table. Now here's the crisis table. David says, because daily I'm going to sit at your table and feast upon you. He says, I know that in the time of trouble, that you will prepare a table for me, before me in crisis. And he says, here's what's going to be on that table. You ready? 4 things. And these 4 things, I've given them 4 names. Are you ready? I've said this. You might want to write these down. These are promises to everyone who will sit at the daily table of the Lord in His word and prayer. Number 1 is divine protection. Everybody say divine protection. Number 2 is divine perspective. Say it, divine perspective. Number 3 is divine authority. Say divine authority. And then divine satisfaction. Say it. Divine protection, divine perspective, divine authority, and divine satisfaction. Let's look at them one by one. Watch this. Divine protection. Now we're talking about the crisis table. God. So let me just stop and say this a moment. Can you see really the whole thought or truth that I'm really walking around in this first part of this message is this idea that, folks, listen, there are many people and Christians, churchgoers, who seek the peace or the comfort of the Lord in the time of trouble. But they do it having not really been faithful at the daily table. And the Bible's very clear that our strength doesn't just come on us out of nowhere in the time of trouble. It comes out of the womb of what we've been feeding on in our daily table. So anyway, so now he talks about the crisis table, the table prepared before its time of crisis. He said it gives divine protection. He says that he will, in the time of trouble, he shall hide me in his pavilion, in the secret place of his tabernacle, he shall hide me. Look at this. God will protect you. Here's the key. God will protect you. Nothing shall harm you. You've got to know that. But he's protecting you, but look where he's protecting you. Look where he's protecting you. Look where he hides you. He's not just hiding you from trouble, but he's hiding you in his pavilion, the secret place of his tabernacle. In other words, folks, listen to this. The focus is not outward on keeping bad stuff from happening to you. Did you get that? The focus here is that God, hide me from trouble, all that stuff, that bad stuff, hide me from that stuff. No, the focus is not hiding you. It's not outward on keeping bad stuff from happening to you. It's not what you're hidden from, but it's who you're hidden in. You get that? Oh, I love that. We know that bad stuff does happen to good people. It just does. But he hides you in him so that no matter if things do fall apart, you won't fall apart. You're safe and secure at peace in his presence. Hallelujah. Your sense of security and well-being doesn't come from anything or anyone in this world. You're hidden in him. He is your sufficiency. We're looking many times for things to turn around. God's looking for us to turn around. Huh? In other words, folks, the whole focus of this table of the Lord that he prepares for us is not focusing on all the trouble that's going on. Many times, it's like many times we're just looking at Jesus, say, Jesus, but we're actually looking at the trouble. Jesus, do something about that. And God says here through David, he says, I'm not hiding you, like I'm not putting a blanket over the trouble to hide the trouble from you. He said, I'm putting a blanket over you to hide you in me. Right. I love that. Now, I love old songs, and when I thought about this, I thought of an old song. Y'all like old songs? I like the new ones too, but I got to tell you, old songs aren't great because they're old. They're old because they're great. And there's a great one. We know it. It is well with my soul. Let me read this to you quickly. Watch this. You're going to see it on the screen. This guy, Horatio Spafford. Why don't you name your kids that? Horatio Spafford. 1828 to 1888. Much like Job, he placed his trust in God during his life's prosperity, but also during its calamities. A devout Christian who immersed himself in Scripture many years of his life were joyous. He was a prominent Chicago lawyer whose business was thriving. He owned several properties throughout the city. He and his beloved wife had 4 beautiful daughters and 1 son. Life was more than good. It was blessed. But faith, no matter how great, does not spare us from adversity. Just as Horatio hit the pinnacle of his profession and financial success, things began to change. It began with the tragic loss of their son. Not long after, the Great Chicago Fire destroyed nearly every real estate investment Horatio owned. Just a few years later, in 1873, Horatio decided to treat his wife and daughters to a much-needed escape from the turmoil. He sent them on a boat trip to Europe with plans to join them shortly after wrapping up some business in Chicago. Just a few days later, he received a dreadful telegram from his wife with just 2 words, saved alone, saved alone. It bore the excruciating news that the family ship had wrecked and all 4 of his daughters had perished. Horatio was on his way to meet his heartbroken wife, passing over the same sea that had just claimed the lives of his remaining children. It was then that he put his pen to paper, and this timeless hymn was born, beginning with these words. Now, knowing that story, listen to this. When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul. Though Satan should buffet, though trials should come, let this blessed assurance control that Christ has regarded my helpless estate and has shed his own blood for my soul. For me, be it Christ hence to live. If Jordan above me shall roll, no pang shall be mine. For in death as in life, thou wilt whisper thy peace to my soul. But Lord, 'tis for thee, for thy coming we wait. The sky, not the grave, is our goal. O trump of the angel, O voice of the Lord, blessed hope, blessed rest of my soul. And Lord, haste the day when my face shall be sight, the clouds be rolled back as a scroll, the trump shall resound and the Lord shall descend. Even so it is well with my soul. I love that. Wow. I love that. How could a man like this write such a song like this when he just lost everything most precious to him? We couldn't imagine that. How can you do that? Well, if you remember in this words that we read about him earlier, he was not just a casual church attender. He was deeply devoted to Christ. He immersed himself in Scripture. Remember, look what it said about him. Much like Job, he placed his trust in God during his life's prosperity, but also during his calamities. A devout Christian, not a casual Sunday goer, not somebody who just opened his Bible when the preaching was going on and then shut it the rest of the week. He says that he was a devout Christian who immersed himself in Scripture. I'm telling you, folks, there's no way a man like this could have written a hymn like I just read to you if he was casually just serving God at a distance. This kind of revelation comes from those who have been found in the secret place, who've been hiding themselves in God, who've been seeing the face of Jesus, who've been glorying in the cross, and who've been raptured in his presence daily, and the Scripture being open to them to the point that when all hell breaks loose, it's painful, it hurts very bad, but yet there's something greater welling up inside them. The river of what they've been living in at the daily table begins to overflow their mind and their heart and their emotions in the time of crisis. And they can say, it is well with my soul. Hallelujah. I like that. Oh, I like that. And nothing should shake you. COVID, big deal. Political craziness? Ha! So what? Oh my God, who's going to be president? Big deal. God sits on his throne in the heavens. Psalm 2 says that he laughs at the derision, the evil plans of the enemy. He looks at Satan's best strategy to try to undermine his plan on the earth, and he laughs. He goes, ha, you think that's going to do anything to stop me? That's nothing. That's nothing. I love this. Oh, Lord Jesus. My time's getting away. All right, but look at this. I got to do this. Look, just a couple of these. Man, I was poring over this song. Because you got to go deep. You got to go deep, man. Don't just, somebody will even look at songs and think, oh, great, it is well. And we look at it as emotional encouragement. This song is not emotional encouragement. This song is rooted in the deep revelations of who Christ is and what he's done for us. Yeah. And when you're anchored in those things, then you don't need emotions. Your emotions can be going crazy, and you still got this on the inside of you. because it's not anchored to emotional encouragement. This song here is full of revelation. Watch this. When peace like a river, put them up there again. When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul. So this man is saying, first of all, from my daily, sitting at the daily table of the Lord, I've come to this place where I used to get all high whenever things are going great, all pumped up, and then I got really low when stuff started going against me. He says, but I've come into a place in God where I have clinged to the rock, and now really I realize whether things are going great or bad, whatever my lot, it doesn't disturb my soul. And he goes on to say, the next verse, he says, though Satan should buffet, though trials should come, let this blessed assurance control. Listen, let this blessed assurance control. To me, that statement is the key statement in the whole song. The whole song is built around that one thing. Let this blessed assurance control. What he's saying here, you want to know what my peace and my comfort and my confidence that my soul should not be shaken in the time of trouble. You want to know what it's built on? There are certain assurances that I found in the daily table. I found in the womb of God's Spirit in the throne room. And he said these assurances guide my emotions, my actions, my thoughts. So look at this. He said, let this blessed assurance control. What is the first one? Well, he said that Christ has regarded my helpless estate and hath shed his own blood for my soul. I love this. Now watch this. Don't miss this because it's huge. You know, whatever your mind goes back to in the time when all hell's breaking loose is going to govern how you deal with what you're dealing with. So whatever your mind goes back to, what does this man's mind go back to? The first thing is, boom, man, all hell breaks loose. His daughters die. His son died. He's lost all of his business. The first thing he goes back to, wait a minute. This is bad what I'm going through. Oh, it hurts, man. It is painful. But I remember that my blessed Savior, he went to the cross and he didn't have to. I couldn't choose this stuff that's happened to me, but Jesus chose to suffer. He chose to die. Why? Because he loved me, the pain and the suffering. He drank of the cup of the Father's wrath. He took the whole sin. Him who knew no sin. He was spotless, never tainted with sin. He became my sin because he loved me. That's what he's saying. He said, so look, I may be hurting right now, but when I look at what Jesus suffered for me and he didn't have to, he paid the price that I owed, but I couldn't pay. And he says, because of that, he said, I'm not going to let this little trouble that I'm going through, and it is little compared to eternity. He said, I'm not going to shake me. Isn't that powerful? It's the first thing. He goes on, he does this. Look at this. He says, for me, to be at Christ. For me, be at Christ, hence to live. If Jordan above me shall roll. In other words, if all the rivers shall flood over me. He said, no pain shall be mine. For in death as in life, thou wilt whisper thy peace to my soul. Oh, listen to this. Have you ever known what it's like in the time of trouble? Man, you're going through a dark hour. Oh, it's bad. But then all of a sudden, because you have made Jesus your hiding place, all of a sudden in the midst of that trouble, you hear this whisper in your soul, my child, it's going to be okay. My child, peace be still. My child, I am with you. I never leave you nor forsake you. I'm going to take this and bring you through it. You're going to come out, and my child, there's going to be more beautiful life on the other side of this once it's over. Those little whispers. This man was saying, look, I'm going through a bunch of hell, but let me tell you, I've got the whisper of God in my soul. And let me tell you, one whisper of God is greater than all the pangs of my flesh. I thought of this. It's kind of crazy, folks, I know, but I thought, in your phone, you ever gotten a message, when the message comes, you go, ping. That's called a ping, right? It's just a little ping, ping. Some people got these phones that, when somebody calls, it rings and it, plays da-da, 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 or something. It's crazy. You do this message, it goes ding, ding. And I just thought, the voice of the whisper of the Lord is like a ping. And the ping of the Lord is much greater than the pang of the world. You can quote me on that. Anyway, that's it. All right. The ping of the Lord is greater than the pang of the world. He says this, look at the next verse, but Lord, 'tis for thee, thy coming we wait. The sky, not the grave, is our goal. O trump of the angel, O voice of the Lord, blessed hope, blessed rest of my soul. Now, folks, get this. You understand it? He says, on these assurances control my life and my actions. And one of them is this, and it's huge for every one of us, folks. What the man was saying is he's saying, I may be going through a lot of hell right now. But he says here, I know something. He said, my faith is rooted in the fact that it's for thee, Jesus, for thy coming we wait. The sky, not the grave. In other words, our deliverance through the sky, not all this hell of the grave we're going through is our goal. Oh, trump of the angel, oh, voice of the Lord, blessed hope, blessed rest of my soul. What he's saying is, yeah, I'm going through a bunch of hell, but it's all temporary. It's all temporary. It's coming. It's going to go. Are you with me now? And then it's going to be gone. And I'm going to step over into a place of eternity with Jesus forever and ever and ever. Are you with me now? Yes. Now, folks, for some, who've not really dug their roots deep into that kind of revelation, they'll hear that and they'll just kind of say, oh, yeah. And it's more of a shallow mental assenting to this idea, which does not confirm your soul at all. But once you dig into this and you pray, oh God, open my eyes to this. I want to see the coming of the Lord Jesus. I want to hasten the day of the Lord. I want to live. God, show me, just open my eyes so that I can not have my eyes on this world, so I can not be in love with this world, but I can be looking constantly for your appearing. And one of the beauties of doing that, well, one is the Bible says that you purify yourself. It causes you to purify yourself. But also one thing it does is it brings you to the place where that you realize, my eyes are set on heaven. This is all temporary, so I'm not going to let this temporary stuff shake me. All this stuff we're going through right now in this year is all going to be over. It's going to be over sooner or later. It's all going to be over. We're going to go on. And all the people that freaked out, the Christians that freaked out, are going to come back and they're going to give a testimony how they made it. Y'all didn't hear me. All these Christians who freaked out are going to come back and give testimony how they made it. But you've heard me say many times before, a testimony has three parts. It has a test I-mony, that's you, it's got you, and then it's got the money. You don't come here and give the testimony about how you got the money until you take the test and you get the money. If you ain't got the money, don't come here and tell us about some test you went through. Now that's deep, I know. It's in the Hebrew. You have to go and study it in the Hebrew, All right, look at this. Really, I'm about halfway through my message, but I'm going to wrap this up. That's just the way I am. I know it. Look, but I need to wrap it up. There's so many good things. Oh, that's good. Yeah. Oh, that is so good. Look at that. That's amazing. Can I tell you this one? Listen to this. I'll tell you this. Listen to this. Listen to this. This is so good. Oh, this is so good. I was looking at this statement. He prepares a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Well, I talked about the enemies. I talked about the table. I didn't talk about preparing. And I looked at that. It says, he prepares. You ready for this? Watch. He prepares. He prepares. Does anybody get it yet? He didn't just pair right now. He prepares. What it's doing is it's speaking of the providential nature of God. What providential means, God has all these different assets, attributes, nature, characteristics. One of the amazing attributes of God is He is a providential God, which means God knows ahead of time what's going to happen. He already sees it before you ever got there. Nothing surprised God. It surprised you, but I'm going to tell you, God's not freaked out. He's not going, oh my God, what are I going to do? COVID. No, God knew ahead. He saw ahead. And He went ahead. And this is the amazing thing about God. He goes ahead and prepares what you're going to need, because he knows what you're going to face when you get there. He goes ahead and somehow even prepares all the stuff you're going to need when you get there. That's preparing. You understand? You don't do that in a hurry at a moment. Just ask my wife. I've come home and I've said, honey, I brought someone home for dinner. What? You what? You don't do that. You don't do that. You have to go ahead of time and prepare. And I love this because, listen to this, I just say this, folks. One of the great privileges as a pastor, and I say privilege, is to be with different people, saints of God who love God, who are now getting ready to go home to be with Jesus. It's tough, but it's amazing. And I've been blown away time and time again. The saints who walk with God. When I go into the room, here they are. They're even in pain. They're suffering. They're getting ready to go be with Jesus. So I'm going in to try to encourage them and lift them. Y'all know what I'm going to say, don't you? I go in there, and I can't even do that because they are lifting me up. There's this glow on them. There's this beauty. It's like in the grace of God's over, and they're now encouraging me. I leave encouraged. What is that? What is that? I have people say to me, say, well, you know what, about different stuff that goes on. I don't know if I could go through that. Oh, yeah, saint, you can. You can. You just don't have the grace right now that you need to go through it because you're not there where you need it. When I go into that room where that saint is dying, who's walked with the Lord, and this glow is all over him, it's not on me. They're encouraging me, not me encouraging them. What's happening? I don't have the grace for what they're going through because I'm not going through it. I didn't need it. But God went ahead of them. Oh, hallelujah. You may think there's stuff in the head of you. Oh, I don't know if I can go through that. Dear, say you can. Yes. And you will, because God goes ahead of you providentially, and he provides all the grace you're going to need to walk through whatever you need to walk through. Hallelujah. Isn't that beautiful? Anyway, so let me come down to the end here. Oh, that's a good one there. Yes. Oh, my. That one's good, too. The third one, of course, is divine authority. I'm not going to talk on that, but it's like divine authority. Yes, God is sovereign. He's providential. Oh, a revelation of that just will blow your mind. But also we need to understand our human responsibility that God has given us. And there's a lot of stuff that happens to us that we don't really have a lot of control over. But when we go through a battle, our automatic position, default position, should not be to just assume the mountain's not going to move. God's given us mountain-moving faith, and we ought to have this fight in us, this spirit that says, the first thing that comes up in us is not oh, the will of God, okay, just whatever. No, the first thing that should rise in us is, no, you don't, Satan. You are trespassing on God's property. God has given me authority in this earth in his name. And I speak to you and resist you and chase you out of this situation. That should be our first response. Amen? Oh, that's good there. Let's go to number 4, though. Number 4 is this: divine satisfaction. And to me, to be honest with you, this is the greatest of them all. Whether the mountain moves or not, it doesn't shake you, because your joy is not in you getting the breakthrough or the answer you want, but it's in him. Notice this, folks. So many places I could go and tell you that really the object, and really where all of our peace comes from, our strength comes from, is finding that all that we are is to be found in the person of Christ. You remember when Jesus said to his disciples, he said, you search the scripture. He says, because you think in those scriptures you find eternal life. You don't. He said, these speak of me. You have to look for me in this word. You get in this word not to find promises that you can confess. You get in this word and ask God, God, open my eyes that I may see. Give me the spirit of wisdom and revelation, the knowledge of Jesus Christ. God, that I can see the glory of your Son, Jesus. Isn't that what David said? He said, I want to behold the beauty of the Lord. And in doing that, in Christ is all wisdom, all strength, all power, everything that we need. I thought about this song. We sang this in worship earlier. And look at this. And I want to read these words to you. Because sometimes, now just think of this. Do you realize sometimes, and Josh and Matt and all of them, Tori, they know that I really think highly of worship. I love worship, and I've always been a worshiper. But one of my pet peeves is I think that people sing songs and they don't really think about the depth of truth in what they're singing. And I want you to look at this. Put these words up here, if you will. This is so powerful. Let me just read this. Watch this. God of creation, there at the start, before the beginning of time. Now stop there a moment. Have you ever thought about that? Now just put that in your pipe and smoke it for a little bit. Wrap your little pea-brain mind around that for a little bit. There at the start, before the beginning of time. I mean, you go all the way to Genesis 1 and it says he's there. And since he's already there, he was already there at Genesis 1, that means you got to jump off the pages of Genesis 1 and go eons, ages back. And somewhere you'll run into the beginning. And then you go past the beginning, you fall up into an abyss, and God is there. Because he has no beginning and has no end. Now that's just the first couple of lines of the song. He says this, with no point of reference. Think about that one a moment. No point of reference. He says, all right, we're going here, we're going there, but there's no point of reference. He begins from nowhere because there is nothing. Anyway, get out of here. You spoke to the dark and fleshed out, stand up with me as I do it. You spoke to the dark and fleshed out the wonder of light. And as you speak, 100 billion galaxies are born. Let's start at the beginning, by the way. Look at this. And as you speak, 100 billion galaxies are born. In the vapor of your breath, the planets form. If the stars were made to worship, then so will I. I love that. I can see your heart in everything you've made. Have you ever just sat and tried to meditate? You're looking at the sun and try to see the heart of God in the sun. Are you listening to me? You ever done something like that? In Psalm 19, it says this. It's interesting. In Psalm 19, it says the sun, when you look at the sun, it's like he has set a tabernacle over the sun so that it's as is when the sun shines. Here's what it says. It's like a bridegroom who's coming out of his chamber to run his race. So the sun speaks of the bridegroom, Jesus, running after his bride. Oh, anyway. I can see your heart and everything you've made, every burning star. A signal fire of grace. If his creation sings your praises, so will I. Don't have time to go through the rest, but let's sing it. Can we just sing it?